Hey everyone, Courtney here, Smitty's Fly Box, and we're just going to be going over June's beginner tying box, which is a classic Renegade. And so let's go ahead and get started. Renegades are a great dry fly to fish, a really good dry fly to learn how to tie, just learn how to keep control of your proportions on your fly and working with some delicate material. So to start, I'm just going to start my thread about an eye length behind the hook eye. This will help me to know where to stop all my materials, and that way I don't end up rushing up towards the head of the fly and crowding my hook eye. And I'll wrap back to my tie-in point. I'm going to leave my thread hanging just even with my hook barb. Okay, so the first material we're going to tie in is our Perdigon body. So a traditional Renegade calls for gold flashabou or gold mylar tinsel. We're going to use this Perdigon body, just something a little different, a little iridescent look to it. And I think it just gives it a nice touch on a good classic pattern. So I'm going to tie that in. Now, a lot of times we'll tie in and wrap over the material and then back and then bring our material forward. But with this darker thread, I don't want to wrap back over into that hook bend because this flash doesn't really show through as well on a darker thread. So I'm just going to advance my thread forward, and then I'm just going to add it to, or let's hook it around my bobbin cradle there for a minute so it's out of my way. And now I can take my Perdigon body and just start wrapping it around that bare portion of the hook shank. And you can see as we go here, it just adds just that nice little red iridescent look, little flash to it. Okay, so then we'll just keep wrapping it up. And then once I get here to the end of it, I'm just going to do a couple of spiral wraps up through my thread body. This isn't for a look, this is just to get it up to where my thread's at. And then I can bring my thread off of my bobbin cradle, and then I can tie that Perdigon body down. I'll trim off my excess, and then I'll wrap back to my tie-in point. Okay, then from here we're going to tie in our hackle. So we're going to start on the back end of the fly with our brown dry fly hackle. So this is just whiting dry fly hackle, and I stripped off a few barbs here to get that stem just bare. It's easier to tie in this way, and I'll wrap right over that on the side of the hook that's facing me. So this is where we get into making sure we have the right measurements and the right portion control on our materials. So it's really easy to wrap too far and get our hackle up here to the halfway point. We really just want to cover this section between the barb and the hook point. That's kind of what I'm looking for. And so I'm going to wrap this a handful of times, maybe 4 or 5 times here. And just fill in that little tiny space there between the barb of the hook and the hook point. And I'm going to just bring my thread up and over. And I want to try to avoid wrapping back into my hackle so I don't mat any of those barbs down. But what I can do is slightly pull that hackle forward and just bring my thread up slightly and just wrap a little bit more of that stem down. That'll just help secure that fly up a little bit more. I'll trim out my excess, and then I'm not going to worry about these little whiskers sticking out the front because we can cover those up with our Peacock. But I like to pull everything back that should be standing upright and get it standing upright. Okay, then next I'm going to take my Peacock curl. I've got 2 strands here, and I'm going to tie these in by the tips of the Peacock, not by the butt ends, but by the tips. I think it just kind of helps it stand up a little bit better when you tie them in by the tips. We're going to wrap back with our thread right up to, one broke, let me just tie one more in real fast. Tell you, you're working with delicate materials here, and Peacock is one of the worst. Just add another buddy there to him. Okay, and then we're just going to wrap forward just over our excess. And like I said, Peacock, when you tie it in by the tips, I think it just helps that hurl to stand up a little bit better, gives you a little fuller profile. So now I'm just going to start rotating this. I've advanced my thread up here, so I'm going to try to leave the same amount of space between the barb of the hook and the point of the hook up here at the front as well. So just kind of reverse that so we have the same distance from our thread to the back of our hook eye. And I'll start wrapping this Peacock around, one wrap right against that hackle, And then I'll just start to rotate this around the hook shank, just building up that nice body that Peacock gives us. Just looks really good. They're nice natural colors. You can see how that, when you wrap it with the tips tied in first, it gives us a nice, really full look to the fly. So I'm going to get right to here. I'm going to hold my Peacock straight up towards the ceiling and then bring my bobbin up and over and tie that guy down. Then I'll trim out my excess. One thing you can do here with your Peacock is just wrap gently back through. I'm not trying to do close wraps, these are just spiral wraps. And all this is really doing is just securing that Peacock, so it's gonna last you a few more fish here. Those fish teeth get at them and it kind of breaks that fly apart over time. Okay, so now I'm gonna take my white hackle and I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna tie that bare stem right against the side of the hook shank. And then advance my thread forward. And I have a little bit of a stem sticking out there, which is fine, so I'm just gonna use that to my advantage and just tie back over it. That'll help keep that stem from slipping out as I start to wrap. So now, I'm just gonna fill in this space. So I'm just gonna match my wraps I did on the back half. So I believe I did about 5 wraps there. I'm just gonna bring all this forward, and then I'll get to my stopping point here. I'm gonna hold my hackle up towards the lights, up towards the ceiling, and then rotate my thread around there and anchor that in. Okay, and then again, I'm just gonna pull everything back with my thumb and my index finger, and we're just gonna build just a little bit of a thread head here. Got a few trapped again. I'm not too concerned about that. Scissors can do some good things for you. So trim out those whiskers, and then we'll go ahead and whip finish. I'm just gonna whip finish right behind the eye. Now I wanna be careful with whip finish so I don't wrap back into my hackle. So it's just one rotation right over the other, and then we can pull, get that tight, trim our thread, and we're good to go. So like I said, the classic Renegade pattern is a great high elevation dry fly, especially lakes, streams if you're going out this summer, anywhere camping. It's a great fly to have on you. It's a great fly to have really anywhere. Late evenings is when I like to fish these on any of the creeks with kind of nice low tumbly water. So go ahead and try it and let us know what you think.